Today, I want to talk about the lose-lose scenario, arguably the worst problem that happens to all of us. And I feel like I've been facing it so much lately. I keep finding myself in the circumstance where it's option one, bad, option two, terrible, option three, even worse. And then there's an option down the line that's just do nothing. And that's always the option I choose. And it's always the worst option, but it always feels so safe and so smart choosing it. And that's because it feels so comfortable to choose do nothing in lose-lose scenarios because it feels like there's no motivation to try. It's really hard to work towards a loss. It's really hard to find motivation, to find, this kind of fire within me to work really hard when I know no matter what, the options, the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow is terrible. It's really hard to work towards that. So it almost feels like when I choose the do nothing approach, it feels really safe because at least I'm not putting in any work. At least at the end of the day, if something terrible happens, if I end up with the worst option, at least I didn't work towards it. For me, for some reason, it feels really scary to put in a lot of work, to try really hard to end up with, not the worst option and then still end up with it. That seems like and that's the scariest thing to me. That type of failure is the scariest thing to me. But, I think we got to just flip the script a little bit because I don't feel that way in a win-win scenario, right? When I fail, if I try really, really hard to get the best possible win and I end up with, the smallest possible win, I'm not embarrassed. If I put in a ton of work to be rewarded and some of that work ends up going out the window, I don't care. And why should that mentality really change when it's a lose-lose scenario? The truth is, it should be scary. The scariest option, the most failing option to us should be the option where we don't put in any work, right? Isn't it the scariest idea to take the biggest failure, to have the worst option, to choose the worst option and do nothing about it? Isn't that the scariest idea to think like, well, maybe there was something I could have done? Like, shouldn't that be the biggest failure in my mind? I don't know why it isn't. And I think that the problem is it's hard to work towards a loss. It's hard to work towards a lose scenario. But, that wording is stupid because a lose-lose scenario doesn't even really exist. The truth is, in a lose-lose scenario, you can still win. You win by choosing or working towards the loss that isn't as damaging, that isn't as destructive, right? If you had a lose-lose scenario where you either got stabbed by a knife or ran over by a car, then if you worked towards the getting stabbed by a knife, yeah, that sucks, but you won because you didn't get the worst loss. And we need to think of this, we need to change the wording around it. Instead of a lose-lose scenario, it's a worse or a better choice scenario, right? There are tons of options. Maybe they're all bad, but some of them are objectively the worst options, and some of them are objectively the best of the worst options, right? And you should always strive towards that best option, whether it's a win or it's a loss. When you have that mentality, then it becomes a win. When you have that mentality, it actually gives you something to work towards. I think the other problem is that often for me, a lot of my problems are between putting in work, maybe even getting in a worse situation in the short term for a long-term payout, or ignoring it entirely for a long-term down. And what I mean by this is, I can basically choose between having a long amount of pain right now that might be lessened to kind of avoid this problem or have the best outcome. Or I can choose to do nothing right now, right? Have no pain right now. But then one day this problem's going to catch up to me and just tank me. And it's going to have its way with me, right? And it just almost feels enticing and easier to just delay the pain and wait and wait and wait and wait until I can't delay it anymore and then get hit by it, than to choose to do the thing that might be hard right now, that might seem wrong or might seem harmful, like bad, to avoid taking pain later. It's almost like if I'm in a car, right? And I'm, the brakes stop working and I'm driving down this road. It's like choosing between to have a few more peaceful moments before you crash into something than to stress and focus and try to make sure you run into the least damaging object. And I need to start doing that. I need to start being able to, even in situations where I have to be pushed out of my comfort zone or do something that I think is going to hurt me, is going to be unenjoyable for me. I need to be able to be the type of person that says, I'm going to choose the option that is better for me, no matter what it takes, no matter what pain I have to go through, no matter what mental, physical, whatever suffering I have to go through. I am going to be able to sit there in that car and take this stress, take this pain to make sure that I don't end up in a bad position in the future. We find it very easy to F over our future self to benefit our current self. We do it all the time. We choose instant gratification over delayed gratification every moment of every day, and that's the simplest version of it. But even in life, all the choices we make, all the things we do, we always put our current self over our future self. We have to stop doing that. I'm not saying to never put your current self over your future self, but I'm saying it needs to be a balance. Okay, I kind of rambled there, but